Can you get me a hammer? Welcome back to Project Daily Drive, and yep, today I am very excited for this episode because I'm going to be doing something I have never done before. We're going to be pulling an engine out. We're going to be pulling the engine out of Gene, and I'm very excited for this. You see, last episode we saw I had a bit of an accident. The bonnet flipped off my car and did a heck of a lot of damage, and is currently not on the car. But this does give me an opportunity. You see, I actually need to pull the engine out of Gene anyway. The clutch is worn out, the water pump's a bit horrible, and the engine leaks. So I need to pull it out anyway, so I might as well do that now. So in this episode, there's actually quite a few episodes coming up, well, today we're going to be pulling the engine out. Now, I've never done this before. I've seen people do it. I know the theory of it. But I've heard that some people have said that it's a breeze and other people have said, oh, it's a pain in the backside. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. So without further ado, let's get into the whole process of pulling an engine out. And let me tell you, I thought it was going to be straightforward. I was wrong.
Okay, so getting Gene ready for the engine to come out. I decided I'd be pulling the grill off for this. Now, you can remove a Morris Minor engine without actually ripping out the grill, but here's the thing. It makes life an awful lot easier if you take it off, and also because I'll be taking the gearbox out at the same time, I thought I might as well take it off, so it's just going to make my life easier in the long run. So, remove the bumper with 2 bolts and then removing the radiator. As it turns out, this thing was leaking and I didn't realise. This hose is only 3 years old and yet it's already starting to crack and split. This is what you get for buying cheaper parts, which is a little bit infuriating. But anyway, I drained all the antifreeze out and put it into an oil drain pan, which I just had lying around, because unfortunately this brand new radiator doesn't actually have a drain tap, you just have to pull the hose off. Now, once all of the water had been drained out, I careful, oh, it's fine. Anyway, I pour all of the antifreeze into a bottle. Now, don't pour this down the drain. Don't be awful. It's not the 1960s. Pour it into a bottle and then take it to your local recycling centre like I did, so it can be safely put away. Antifreeze is really nasty for the environment. Don't do what people used to do and just pour it down the drain. It's very bad. Anyway, now it's just a matter of actually removing the radiator. In hindsight, I didn't actually need to remove the radiator. I could have left it attached to the grill, but it would have made it quite unwieldy. So all I had to do was pull it off. There's 4 bolts that hold it in, and also the top hose, which, like the bottom hose, was already starting to crack. Wasn't happy about that, and it also took me ages to get off.
Go. What a monumental pain in the backside that was.
I should mention I actually spent about 5 minutes trying to pull that hose off because it was completely stuck, and then poured the rest of the water out into the oil drain pan. You can't really see it, but some sludge came out, which is a little bit concerning because that's not very old water, maybe a year old. Anyway, I thought I'd shown this in detail. Turns out I hadn't, removing the grill, so I'll show it in detail another time. But to remove this, you have to remove the 2 chrome hockey sticks, which bolt in from underneath the wing. There's 5 bolts at the bottom, and then 4 bolts at the top, which were actually a bit loose, which was alarming. I should be very careful in the future to double check all my bolts. But anyway, once all the bolts are removed, it simply pulls off and then pulls out of the way, and the engine is free to be pulled out. And now we are to the day of trying to pull the engine out. Now I've got to jack up the front of the car. You've seen me do this before. Got to jack up underneath the chassis legs, put an axle stand underneath there behind the jack, and then jack up the other side. This is so I can actually get underneath. There's a lot of things underneath that we need to disconnect, such as the clutch linkage, accelerator cable, all the gearbox linkages, the prop shaft, for instance, lots of things. I also need to drain all the fluids out of the system. So as you can see here, we're going to start draining the engine oil. Now I actually changed this engine oil not that long ago, which means that the engine colour here is a bit alarming. The oil is a bit dark, considering that it's not really had more than 1,000 miles. Not a good sign, if I'm being honest. Could be some nasties in there. By contrast, when I went to drain the gearbox oil by removing the plug at the bottom, it was nice and clean and still green, as you can see here. You got to drain these out because, well, the oil's going to come out anyway, and if I take the prop shaft out without draining the gearbox, it's going to pour all over my nice stone flag driveway, which would be upsetting. So I'm going to get them all nice and empty, and then start to disconnect the things underneath, such as this, which is the gearbox cross member.
Yep. I'm going to grab that.
I'm going to go mad at this thing.
There you go.
Thank you, Chels. There we go. It's moving. I'm going to end up breaking my hand here.
You can tell that it's no longer a secret.
Oh yeah, because I was going to go and steal it when you weren't looking.
Yes.
Me bringing you here was a ploy to steal your nice new camera.
Why do I think that's not an unlikely thing to happen?
Hey!
Oh, by the way, message from your mother.
Oh god. I have to replace that, it's looking a bit frayed. There's a lot of them.
Are you getting grease in your mouth there?
Maybe. Oh, no. Ah! Got some dirt in my eye.
It's like wearing glasses, you can get dirt in your eye.
Oh, God, yeah. There we go. Alright. Now, the only thing holding that in is the prop shaft and the bolts. Now all I have to do is remove all the carburetor mechanism, starting with the accelerator cable. The spring here just pulls off, it actually attaches straight onto the exhaust clamp, funnily enough, nice simple way of doing it, and then I had to remove the accelerator cable and the choke cable. Unfortunately, they really didn't want to move. The bolts that held them on are incredibly tight and rusted. The carburetor cable nut is tiny, and by the time that I ended up removing the choke mechanism to get the cable off, and it still wouldn't budge, and I was running out of a bit of time at this point, my patience started to wane. I had brand new cables, so I just decided, naff it, I'm snipping them off. Sorry, you should see the state of the accelerator cable. Look at that, it's falling apart! I have a replacement for that, so...
like, get this out for the next
Have you got a replacement?
I have got a replacement already.
Cut it and replace.
I don't know
Yeah, at least you can clear it all out once the engine is in the workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now on the other side of the engine I just had to remove the electronics, starting with the cables that go onto the coil and the cable that goes into the back of the alternator, as well as the oil pressure sensor, which, well, as you'll find out, doesn't do anything.
Probably for one season. But yeah.
Oil pressure gauge, which I know for a fact is broken.
It's broken.
Yeah, because
have you got any oil pressure indicators on the inside of your car?
I have a little LED that doesn't work.
Oh my god.
That's worrying, isn't it?
That's fine, I'm not concerned.
Is there any way you can add indicators?
Yes.
Will you?
No. Actually, no, that's a lie. I'm going to put an oil pressure gauge in. Take the clamp off. Comparatively, removing the exhaust clamp was a breeze. Just sounded terrible because it's a bit rusty.
Well, something dropped.
Yeah, that's the bolt. Sorry, if it's down there, it's not going to be lost. There we go.
Hold on.
Oh.
I just dropped it.
Alright, we'll pick it up from the floor.
Not into oil this time.
Now, big props to my dad, who at this point noticed I hadn't removed the petrol line because I'd forgotten, and so removed it and showed a pretty ingenious way of plugging it up so it wouldn't leak.
Dear God, it's a bit stiff in.
There we go. Nope, that's not working.
Matthew,
Yeah.
when you fitted this fuel hose to this carburetor, did you sort of glue it in place? Because it ain't for shifting.
Oh no.
What? That's a brand new. That's like a year old. How's that stuck?
I assume the rubber has shrunk a little due to...
Heat.
Yes.
So it's...
It's alright, just give it a little bit of persuasion.
Heat sealed it.
Some screwdriver persuasion.
There you go, it's gone now.
And voila.
Right. Could...
Clamp?
Where's that clamp?
No, better still. Pencil.
Oh.
It's better than most things. Ready? Okay?
Perfect.
Right.
Happy days. Maybe best just to put it on... No, no.
I need to cable tie it so it stands vertically.
Yeah. You have to an extent.
Right.
Unfortunately, this is where... Oh, it went wrong. Getting the prop shaft out.
Could do that.
Worst comes to the worst.
Okay, here we go, everyone.
You see, here's the thing about the prop shaft on a Morris Minor. From stock, it's held in with 4 bolts that are extremely heavily torqued down because, of course, if they undo, you've got problems, and they've probably also got thread locker on them. However, these aren't standard Imperial bolts like a lot of the rest of the car. No, 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 that would be too easy. Nope, these are Whitworth. Now, Whitworth is a different type of Imperial system which I hate because the spanners and the bolts don't quite match up. It's infuriating, and the only Whitworth spanner I had was an incredibly short, stubby spanner. I just could not get the purchase on the bolts. But don't worry, it got even worse than that, because whoever had taken the prop shaft off in the past and then put it back on had done so using Imperial spanners and had rounded every single nut on the prop shaft. So not only were they incredibly heavily torqued down, probably with about half a tube of Loctite on all of them, they also had no purchase because the spanner kept slipping because the bolts were rounded. We spent about half an hour trying to get this thing off on one bolt before we just realised it wasn't going to happen and we gave up for the weekend. I wasn't happy.
Oh yeah.
Now, one of the things I wanted to do to get the prop shaft off was use some heat. So my dad brought his antique blowtorch, which amazingly worked, and it had to be lit by setting it on fire. But worked perfectly fine. However, the flame wasn't particularly hot. This is more used for stripping off paint from wood. So we decided to get a modern plumber's blowtorch instead, which burns hotter and is a much more controllable flame. Now, of course, this thing's perfectly safe as long as you can get it to light. We decided to abandon the blowtorch idea. We finally have the proper spanners, the car's up in the air, and we can now remove the bolts. And it took quite a long time to remove them, so it gave us plenty of time to natter.
Can you get me a hammer? Ah! How many knees does an elephant have?
It has 2. Sorry, 4.
Ah! Only has 2.
Wait, well the front 2.
Front 2 are elbows.
No,
Yeah.
well,
You know, they are.
well it walks on 4 feet.
It's got 2 knees and 2 elbows. Completely different joints.
Getting these bolts off was pretty arduous. They were really stuck on there with Loctite, rust, and they were so heavily rounded. It ended up taking us about half an hour just to remove these 4 bolts, and it was tough.
Right. After a whole mess, here we go. I am now supporting the entire prop shaft.
Oh.
Okay, it's coming out, coming out, coming out, coming out. Oh. I'm running out of space for the holding.
Oh. Couple of out.
After all of this and it's not coming out.
Can you take off the tension, Dad?
Take off.
Yep. There we go.
Oh.
Oh, that is heavy.
What's your head?
Actually, it's not too bad. I can carry it up on my head, that. Oh, it's hollow. Excellent. Careful. Oh no! Can you get the oil pan?
Oh no!
There's still more oil in the gearbox.
Where do you want the oil pan?
Just put it next to him.
Slide it underneath. Thank you. No, I'm not going to that nice stone driveway. No.
The final thing to remove from underneath the car is the gearbox cross member, held in with 4 bolts. That's it, everything else is removed. Now these were particularly difficult to get off because I'd wax oiled the chassis legs and the bolts actually stick through them, and predictably they're also Whitworth. But that is the last component that needs to be taken off from underneath the car. Between this and the bolts that actually hold the engine in the engine bay, the entire engine and gearbox is now free to be removed. Hopefully I haven't forgotten anything. Finally, the moment is here. 2 weeks of work over 2 long weekends, lots of scraped knuckles, a very bad back, lots of stress, and having to purchase a number of brand new tools. Here's the moment of truth. Engine strapped in, completely disconnected. Now, will the engine and gearbox come out of Gene? Let's find out, shall we? Let's see if I've forgotten anything. Right. Are we ready?
Yes.
Are we steady? Yes, the engine came up, and after a little bit more faffing, where the gearbox kept getting stuck on absolutely everything, finally, the engine pulled through.
Oh, we've done it.
Well done, brilliant.
Happy days. Oh, that's why that wheel is literally just off the ground.
What a monumental pain in the backside. Look at the camera. We're out. Engine and gearbox. Oh, gee. Look at all of the...
Yeah, literally, the moment we started tilting it, more just started flowing.
I've got a bucket.
There's my brake line. Luckily, my brake line is not hurt. That's good.
That would be
No.
a sticky situation. That.
You see, now... Oh my, there's no inspection cover on the clutch. What? Oh, gee. Look at the state of the gearbox. And as a final job, at the end of absolutely everything, one hell of a couple of weeks, I've got to break the gearbox off of the engine. Now it's held on by a number of bolts around the bell housing, some of them Whitworth and some of them Imperial, because of course, why would it be easy? Now it took us a little bit of time to actually get this thing off, because once we'd removed all the bolts it wouldn't shift. It turns out that I'd forgotten to remove the clutch spring, and the clutch spring was holding the gearbox onto the engine, because I'm not very good at double checking apparently. But at least then we were done. Oh, hang on.
What?
I probably should have removed the clutch spring.
Oh, yeah, not a bad idea, that was.
That's no wonder we can't put the blooming thing off. There.
Right.
Okay.
Pull.
And there you go.
It comes off easier that way. Dear.
Next time we'll start with that.
Oh, look at the state of the clutch. Look how worn out that is.
Hot name.
Time for a new one, I think.
It was time for a new one before I even bought the car 4 years ago. And that was pretty much that. The engine is now completely free and was able to go on the engine stand. The gearbox can be put away so it can be sorted out, cleaned up. And, well, this project's done for now. Good lord, do I have a lot of work ahead. I've still got to strip down the engine, clean it up, fit new parts, paint it, then fit it back in the car on top of absolutely everything else. Oh, I've got a lot of work ahead of me, haven't I? Thank goodness we're done. The engine's out, it's on the engine stand, it's in the workshop, and oh, thank goodness for that. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get any footage of me putting the engine on the engine stand. The camera decided it was just not going to work that day. Just went on strike. Great. So I do apologise for that. But the engine's out and looking decidedly horrible. It's very rusty and coated in oil. I didn't quite realise how bad the engine looked, but yeah. So, well, what are we going to be doing next episode? I'm really excited for this. I'm really hyped for this. Here's the plan. I'm going to be pulling the engine apart and then doing some repairs, putting it back together with a lick of paint, basically. I'm not going to be doing a full, in-depth rebuild. I don't think I need to. The engine doesn't smoke, it doesn't make any horrible noises, and fingers crossed, as long as the bores aren't too scored, it'll be mechanically fine. But what I do want to do is strip it down. I want to change the head gasket because it's leaking, all of the seals. I want to change the water pump because the water pump is pretty horrible. The timing chain as well, I might as well change that, get a duplex timing chain put on there, paint it all up, put some stickers on it so that when it goes back in the car it's going to look really nice, especially at the car shows. I always like to put my bonnet up and
Well, seeing as that I need to fix the bonnet, I might as well put lots of effort into having it go up safely. Not like it was previously. But yeah, thank you ever so much for watching. If you want to help support the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. It really does make my day seeing people subscribe. And if you want to give this video a like as well, I'd be very much appreciative. And don't worry, I read all your comments. I always like to sit through and read them when they come through. I always put a nice favourite on there. Always makes me smile seeing all of the support from all of you. I'm trying to make Project Daily Drive a much more regular thing. You know, I've been adjusting to a new job and I really want to get more regular content out, so I'm dedicated to getting content out, fingers crossed, monthly. So this next video will be next month, and believe you me, once this project's done, I've got some pretty interesting ones lined up for you all. Also, if you wanted to donate, I have a tip jar, a Ko-fi link, which just allows you to basically put in a tip. It's always nice, it just kind of helps me out, so I'd appreciate that. But yeah, thank you ever so much for watching, everyone, and I shall see you all in the next episode, where I'm going to pull apart the engine. Oh boy.